What's up, y'all? Jason Earl from the Marinade here with another installment of Marinade Musings. Today I'm going to stick with the vinyl theme, and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite records of all time, Jason Isbell's Southeastern. I believe this album is one of the most important in modern Western music for a lot of reasons, and the biggest one is I think it kicked off a whole movement. Since 2013, when this album was released, we've seen the rise of Tyler Childers to the point where he can play stadiums. We've seen an open for the Rolling Stones. We've seen Brandi Carlile really emerge as a superstar. We've seen folks who were inspired by some of those folks now. We're that far along generation-wise. People like Zach Bryan who sell out stadiums. And I just don't think any of that happens without Jason Isbell's Southeastern. Not that those folks didn't have the talent already. Of course, they would have been making undeniably great music regardless. But the fact that a Brandi Carlile, a Margo Price, a Tyler Childers, even a Zach Bryan has the audience that they do is because this record really put a spotlight on what we now pretty universally refer to as Americana music. This was the first album that I ever pre-ordered, y'all. I was a huge fan of Jason Isbell when he was with the Drive-By Truckers. I have a whole section in my record collection that's just Drive-By Truckers and Drive-By Truckers universe stuff. So it's stuff like Will Johnson's solo records, who's a member of Jason's 400 unit. I own almost every Drive-By Truckers record on vinyl, and of course I have all of Isbell's records in several forms. Huge fan of his music coming into this record, and this was the one that kind of introduced him to a broader audience. Songs like Elephant, songs like Cover Me Up, which may be my favorite song of all time, Yvette, on and on and on and on. He takes on cancer, he takes on child abuse, he takes on undying love. It's a beautiful record any way you slice it. And I remember pre-ordering it. I remember being so excited about pre-ordering a vinyl record for the first time in 2013. And then the day came. I hadn't listened to any of it. This is pre-proliferation of streaming. I had a Pandora account, but it wasn't like I could just dial up the record and listen to the singles on demand ahead of time. I mean, I basically heard a couple of songs from this once or twice and then pre-ordered the record. So sitting in my living room in my little apartment at a time in Jacksonville, Florida, at a time when my life was starting to crystallize. I was starting to understand who I was as an adult. I was starting to finally grow up in my early 30s, think about my career, think about myself as a creative person, and this record was an accelerant for me in a lot of ways, personally, creatively, even professionally. I ended up in a very serious relationship. That year, the record became a soundtrack for what was a partnership with someone. This record is maybe the most meaningful album for me. Not necessarily my favorite. It's not even my favorite of his. That would be Weather Vanes, and maybe I'll do a video about that as well. But it, to me, is maybe the most important record of my lifetime. I think it has one blemish, if I'm being picky. It has a song called Super 8 on it. That is a rock and roll song that is very good and kicks ass live. Please don't misunderstand me. I like the song a lot. But it just doesn't really fit on the rest of this very introspective record. And it's since come out that song was added later. If you listen to the demos on the 10th anniversary edition of Southeastern, which of course I have, this is a must-have if you're an Isbell fan, if you're an Americana fan, if you like good music. This has a disc that is just the demos, which I highly recommend. I kind of wish they would have kept it that way. I like the fact that Southeastern, the original Southeastern, has a bunch of players on it. It's not just an acoustic record by any means. I mean, most of his 400 unit at the time, his band, is on the record. Amanda Shires is on the record. Will Johnson, who's now a part of the 400 unit, is on the record. I love that it's that way, unlike the demos, of course. But I would have liked to have seen Super 8 end up on some other project or just as a single or something like that. But that's splitting hairs. I mean, Traveling Alone, Different Days, songs that she sang in the shower, Live Oak. I have this theory that I saw him when he was writing Live Oak. I was in Live Oak, Florida at Spirit of the Swanee Music Park for the Roots Festivals. And he was playing. I got to see him, Justin Townes Earl, may he rest in peace, and Jim Lauderdale play a set in the round. And later that day, I got to see Jason and the 400 unit play a set. This would have been 2012. And I have this theory that he was writing Live Oak there in Live Oak. You know, I saw him sitting on a hill writing. This is sounding stalkerish. It wasn't, I promise. I just happened to be there and be a big fan. And then later that song came out, and I always thought back to that moment. Like, I wonder if he was writing Live Oak. If I ever get a chance to run into him again, I'll ask him that question. I did get to meet Jason a couple of times. When he first left the Drive-By Truckers, he played a barbecue joint, Mojo Barbecue, in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. He played a set with Broen Lawler, who was the original guitar player in the 400 unit, who now plays with St. Paul and the Broken Bones. And then he played a set with the 400 unit at this tiny little barbecue restaurant in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, right after his record Sirens of the Ditch was released. Really fond memories. Really, really fond memories of this man's music, how the impact it's had on me, the soundtrack it has provided for my adult life. We're around the same age, and I've kind of grown up really with Jason's music since my 20s, and I'm grateful for this record. Y'all, I hope you enjoyed this. Go back and listen to our first episode where I talk about Waylon Jennings' Honky Tonk Heroes. And also check out the Marinade with Jason Earl wherever you consume podcasts or at marinadepodcast.com. Also, Marinade under the Marinade Media umbrella, you can check out Life's Greatest Hits, which is a podcast with my dear friend Jordan Foley, where we do a vinyl swap and listen to a record the other guy hasn't listened to from our personal collections, and then come together and talk about it. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.